Welcome back to another episode of Light Beer, Dark Money. I'm Sean Noble.
And I'm Chris Clements. How you doing, Sean?
I'm doing well. The presidential race gets more crowded.
It did get more crowded this
We've had 3 more people announced. We're now at 10.
Now, do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing?
Well,
because it looks like what's being reported across pretty much every major media is that Trump has been told that he's going to be indicted.
Yes, the latest is that the Justice Department has said that he is a target.
Trump told he is a target of special counsel's Mar-a-Lago probe.
Which we kind of assumed.
Yeah.
But they were looking at other people. But this is evidence that he is definitely in the crosshairs. Of course, he will use this as I'm a victim. There will be the Trump loyalists.
Not I'm a victim. This is the greatest witch hunt in the history of the planet.
But this is a guy who took classified documents.
But he says he declassified them.
That's what he's claiming. The way it works. He may be claiming that. But
still, an indictment of a former president.
And that they have a recording of him bragging about taking documents that he knew were classified, thereby...
But then what do you do with all of Biden's classified documents in closets and behind Corvettes? I mean, what do you do with that?
I think the difference at this point, in my mind, the difference is that Trump was actively blocking the return of documents after the request from
the archives.
Yeah.
And the Justice Department.
Yeah. And we don't know what, we know that the prosecutor has been looking at what kind of business deals were done after Trump left office in relation to potential documents he had in place.
Well, we know one business deal that was done, and that's the selling of the Trump Hotel in Washington, D.C. for a whopping like $500 million or whatever it was.
You did make a pretty penny on that.
Yeah,
one.
They did.
They did. So this week we had Chris Christie, Doug Burgum.
Doug Burgum. That's the name that we could not get last week.
Household name.
I listened to our podcast. I'm like, why could I not get his name? He's a very nice guy.
He seems. I watched a video of him. He seems like a nice guy.
But nobody knows who he is.
He's a successful business guy who's had a tech company in North Dakota of all places. He's the governor of North Dakota. Apparently, a very good conservative governor. Probably would be.
His name is not Christie Noem.
Yeah, that's South Dakota.
Well, I know, but she's rumored to jump in as well.
Well, that would be
the Dakotas could be in play,
which would be amazing.
Yeah,
when's that ever happen?
Yeah, I mean, what is up there besides fracking and fracking?
Well, look, so I've never been to North Dakota is one of 3 states.
Yeah,
maybe 2. I think North Dakota and Alaska are the only 2 states that I haven't been to.
Okay,
and based on the video, his announcement video, it looked very similar to Wyoming. The reason I say that is because Alex, our intrepid videographer, did a lot of video work for a governor's race that I did up there with Harriet Hageman.
Oh, yeah.
And we did he used his drone to get vistas and trains and all that stuff.
Well, it's beautiful country.
Yeah, and this stuff that was in the Burgum video looked very similar.
Well, that country is just miles and miles and miles of government-owned, forestry and everything else.
Yeah. I wonder how much is North Dakota.
And national parks. Yeah. Some of those beautiful national parks there in
the
country.
And then,
I sat next to him at a RGA meeting. I did.
Really?
And I had to pick my brain on this. And my first RGA meeting, when Trump was first elected, and Mike Pence gave the address at that. It was down in Orlando. And I sat next to Doug Burgum. He was a really nice guy. And that's the first time I met then President or Vice President-elect Pence. And actually he addressed the evening dinner at one of the dinners I went to. And I stood in line and shook his hand. And I thanked him for standing up for people of faith in the country.
And speaking of Pence, he announced as well.
And he announced as well.
Yesterday. Or a couple days ago. And yesterday, he showed that he is willing to come out swinging against Trump.
Yeah. But he does it in such a respectful way. Well, like it's a swing, but it's,
Yeah. So
It's not he's not mean about anything.
I actually really appreciate this quote. I
Yeah.
believe that anyone who puts themselves over the Constitution should never be president of the United States, and anyone who asks someone else to put them over the Constitution, should never be president of the United States again.
That
A direct shot,
that
right at Trump.
but it's a direct shot, but it's truthful.
Well, yeah, it's truthful.
It's truthful.
He wanted to suspend the Constitution.
It's cordial. and the WAG and what's really interesting,
Cordial? I don't know about cordial.
I think it's well, I mean Mike Pence. I mean, come on. But
He did it with a smile on
Yes, he did it with a smile on his face. But what's really interesting, and I think this is important, is that now, I mean, with the entrance of Mike Pence and him taking, these direct shots, with DeSantis swinging and laying haymakers, the pouncing on Donald Trump will begin.
Well, neither of them,
and-
neither Pence nor DeSantis have done anything remotely close to what Chris Christie did in his town hall.
That was what I was just going to
in
get to.
New Hampshire.
That's what I
where
was
he
just gonna get
basically
to.
called him the grifter in chief, and talked about all of the sweetheart deals that he and his family have garnered as a result of him being in the White House.
Yeah.
And it was brutal. Christie is, I mean, and I think that Christie has basically said, I am here to be the grenade to blow up Donald Trump, and if that puts me in a position to win, great. But I
Yeah.
think his first and foremost, his goal is to blow up Donald Trump.
Yeah, I
So
don't
we'll
think
see
he
whether it
has
happens
much
or
of a
not.
chance of winning. I don't know how much traction he's going to get out of the East, beyond his core supporters and maybe some people on the East Coast.
Well,
But,
Peggy Noonan had a
peop-
pretty interesting column because she made a pretty good point
I
that
did read that
prior
column.
to him running for president, if you really look back at his 2 terms as governor, other than kind of the Bridgegate scandal near the end, which is a typical Jersey type thing, I mean, he did some really amazing stuff for a blue state like New Jersey.
No, he was an incredibly
Republican
effective governor and showed how a Republican can win in a blue state and govern effectively in a blue state. For sure, he was the poster child of that. Sununu up in New Hampshire is probably another one. However, he got a little full of himself with Bridgegate and some other things that he stepped in. And one thing that she said in that article that I remember is to own all of it. Just own it.
Yeah.
Going forward, don't make excuses. Don't do anything that would make you trip over it. Just own it. Just own it, and people will respect you for that moving forward.
Right. So you have, I don't know if I can get through all of them because you have obviously Donald Trump,
You have Vivek.
Nikki Haley, you have Ron DeSantis, we have Tim Scott, we've got Larry Elder.
Yeah, I heard. I haven't seen his announcement as yet.
I mean, he's officially in, but I haven't. I don't. Did he do an announcement?
I don't know.
I presume maybe not. And then that's 5. I'm 5 off. So then you got Burgum, Pence, and Christie.
Vivek
Oh, Vivek, right? How do you say his last name?
Ramaswamy.
Ramaswamy. And I'm missing one. This is terrible. And then the one that's still a question mark.
Say Nikki?
I said Nikki.
Yeah.
The one that's still a question mark is Youngkin, who kind of threw his hat back out into the possibilities. So there's
Yeah.
11 potential. There's 10 that have announced.
Well, do you think Christie Noem will join the
Oh,
pack?
I guess that's a possibility. I kind of think that it's, I mean,
She's been rumored.
I don't know. Why am I
Here's
missing?
a
I'm
great
missing
quote
something.
from Chris Christie. I just looked up. A lonely, self-consumed, self-serving mirror hog
Mirror
is
hog.
not a leader.
Mirror hog.
Even our producer Rob was laughing at that. Oh my goodness!
I mean, Chris
he
Christie's
forgot to
gonna
say
have-
orange.
Yeah, he's going to have some. I mean, it will be interesting to see whether Trump does do any of the debates, because really, that's necessary for Chris Christie to really lay into him and have some impact. They need to be on the same stage together, I think. But
Do you think? Do you think Trump was still going to avoid the debates?
I think he's going to be told he should,
Yeah.
but I don't know, his ego might get in the way. Right?
Maybe the first one, but his poll numbers, I mean, make no mistake, his poll numbers are going to start to fade. I mean, as these indictments pile up, as all these other issues.
I would, as we've said before, the national polls are meaningless.
Yeah.
Look at the state polls, and some of the state polls are starting to show some tightening of this race.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a 30-point lead like it was before. It's,
well, there's been some polling that's been done in Iowa where his lead has completely collapsed.
Yeah.
And the path to victory for Pence, specifically in Iowa, to the presidency is Iowa. I read that article the other day as well, because of his evangelical Christianity. That plays well in Iowa more so than New Hampshire, and so that his best bet to even make a dent is winning Iowa.
Well, I firmly,
and South Carolina.
I firmly believe that we're going to have 3 different winners in Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina.
Yeah, I think you're right. So if you were to
predict, come out of South
because
Carolina,
you're the prognosticator.
Yeah.
we were the
I've been
prognosticators
so good at
in
that.
November and blew it.
Oh, I'm so good at that. I don't know. Iowa's always a bit of a wild card.
Yeah.
I mean, remember
Ted Cruz won Iowa.
Santorum won Iowa.
Yeah.
Santorum.
Well, that kind of shows you where the electorate is there. So the idea that
But the
Pence
problem
can
with
actually
Santorum
make a dent
is Santorum
is
won
not far
Iowa,
off.
but they didn't announce that Santorum won Iowa until like 2 weeks later. Remember that?
Oh yeah, I do. That was so long ago.
And he spent no money. He took his pickup truck and he went to every single county
and every
and it
single
paid
fair
off. And it paid off.
and
But
ate every single deep
but it
fried
didn't give
Oreo.
him the big mo. So, I mean, I don't know. And on the Republican side, has anyone who won Iowa won the presidency recently?
Yeah, I mean that was
because
the
Cruz
thing
won
I was,
Iowa this last time.
Yeah,
right?
he did, and
Or in 2016.
That's what I was going to say. Is Iowa even important anymore? Because really, the momentum for the presidency seems to be New Hampshire, South Carolina, those two, and then Super Tuesday, and then that seems to carry. And Iowa just seems to be an afterthought. They're first. They love being first, especially in the Republican side.
Definitely an afterthought on the Democrat side because the Democrats have tried to abandon it completely.
Yeah, they
they're
torpedoed
not really
it. They're starting off in South Carolina.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, it's going to be.
Well, they're starting off in South Carolina, but they're not allowing basically anybody to run against Joe Biden because they're trying to silence every single, all 3 of them or whatever.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing. I mean,
RFK was kicked off of Instagram. He was kicked off of Facebook.
But he's now back.
Now he's back.
But
he had a really interesting interview with on Twitter.
Yeah, Elon Musk did him on Twitter Spaces,
and then he was filming from Yuma.
Yep,
he was
down the border
just
talking
2 days
about
ago.
Talking about it was 2 a.m. and he was talking about we would watch 150 people come across the border from all over these places. I mean, I've never seen a Democrat down there doing that.
Nope. Not even our fair senators.
And Jack Dorsey, former Twitter,
former CEO of Twitter,
the founder of Twitter, has endorsed RFK Jr.
I think you're going to see a lot more people do that.
He's got a number of Silicon Valley types that are jumping on board. So
and make no mistake, RFK is a liberal. I mean, some conservatives, because of his views on vaccines and how he came out against Fauci and Fauciism and everything, obviously there was an alignment with conservatives there. But beyond that, there's not much.
No, he's very liberal. I mean, he's a Kennedy for crying out loud. Now,
let's not put that again.
Is he different than your standard primary voting Democrat now? Probably not as
well. The difference
radical.
between he and Joe Biden is very stark, and that is that he's living versus dying.
He's alive.
He can walk up a flight of stairs. He can walk down a flight of stairs, and actually hold his own on a stage.
He can be awake at 2 a.m. filming a video at the border.
Yes, he can be awake at 2 a.m. filming a video at the border with hundreds of migrants behind him, and greet them accordingly, cohesively. Now he does have those vocal issues that he inherited from his grandmother. and that's a little disarming, but he seems to deal with it well. And he's polling at 25-30%.
Well, and there's going to
And
be
you got to think
mounting-
that's going to grow.
Yeah, there's going to be mounting pressure on Biden to do a debate because people are going to say, "Look, you got to prove that you have the chops to get through
Or
a general
does
election."
he even
and
make it there?
Maybe
Does he
not.
bow out and anoint Kamala?
Look, if it's Kamala, then it's RFK. If if Biden bows out and hands it over to Kamala, this is gonna RFK's to lose. This is not 1980 when Ted Kennedy. Keep in mind, this is now the second time a Kennedy has taken on an incumbent Democrat president.
But it seems like RFK also is willing to go talk to anybody.
Yeah,
And I find
'Cause he's
that,
not afraid of-
I find that admirable. He was on, when Tucker had a show, he was on Tucker, and he was on Elon Musk, and he's been on
Well, he did a
Fox, he's been on
podcast with,
CNN. He's been
he
he's
did a
been everywhere.
podcast with James O'Keefe.
Yeah, he did a podcast with James O'Keefe. So he's not afraid of the conservative questions. He's not afraid of the liberal questions. He's not afraid of anybody.
Right.
So I'll just come talk to you. And the
Kinda
conservative,
refreshing.
again, the conservative sort of fascination with RFK has to do with his views on vaccines and his views on Fauciism, Dr.
Right.
Faustus.
Right. So I
Which
don't
he's
know,
been
this is
correct
gonna
on.
This is going to be a very, very interesting cycle. The next few months with this, again, a crowded Republican field. The drama of what's going to happen on the Democrat side. It's it's something else.
Well, at
It's
least we
something
have
else.
people, running. I mean, the
Well,
Democrats are.
I
You've got
gotta
Marianne
say-
Williamson. You've got RFK.
Yeah,
and-
obviously there an incumbent president that keeps the field smaller. But I do have to say that when I think about who would be the potential if Biden wasn't around, the Republican field is significantly stronger than the Democrat field.
Well, I mean, and
Take Trump out of the mix, and you've got 10 top-notch, ready now people who could do well in a general election. And
yeah,
there's
and
maybe
and
3 or
generally would
4.
do well in the job,
Yeah, absolutely.
not be deer in the headlights like Trump was
Right.
for 6-8 months,
Yeah.
just flailing. But yeah, I agree with that. But you have to think that Gretchen Whitmer, governor from California, Gavin Newsom, they're all just waiting. You got to think they're just ready to pounce.
Yeah.
Because even Gavin, he's quietly, my understanding is that he's quietly going and raising money just around the country, making little speeches, trying to he wants to appeal to the center of the country. I don't know how he does that with what a mess his state is.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty tall order.
Did you see the Babylon Bee the other day?
No.
So Gavin Newsom is screaming about DeSantis sending like 16 migrants to Sacramento and saying what a small man DeSantis is, and then Babylon Bee's like, Florida welcomes like another 100,000 Californians
Yeah. Exactly.
to the state,
Exactly.
which is what's happening.
Right. Well, we'll have to see how this plays out.
Well, I mean, it's all people have different viewpoints on it, but it's great for our country. Seeing this, people jumping in, making their arguments, being in the arena, as Teddy Roosevelt famously said, and I think it's important.
Yeah.
And again, the sad thing about on the Democratic side, when you have a flailing president whose poll numbers are going down, not up, whose health is constantly called into question, who was at the Air Force Academy and took a spill for the ages that everyone, Democrat, Republican, didn't really matter, looked at and said, oh my gosh, that's not a good thing.
Right.
Not a good look. Not good for our country. Not good for Joe Biden. What are we going to do?
Yeah.
So that's the scary part.
So we have to apologize to our friends in Arkansas. We forgot Asa Hutchinson.
Oh, Asa
That's
Hutchinson. That's right. We should apologize to our friends the James, because they've been helping Asa with some stuff.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
there you go.
Gordon
Sorry,
and
Lisa. Sorry, guys.
So sorry about that. I mean, yeah, he is forgettable. He is forgettable. His claim to fame was, not wanting to trans the kids. So he's got some issues.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
But
let's see
yeah,
how this plays out.
what is he polling at? 0.5%?
If that.
I mean, at least Pence gets in. He's polling at 6.
Yeah.
And he eclipsed Vivek and Nikki like almost immediately. Certain people, if you don't get a bump after August, after the first debate, you really need to.
Well,
think
and
about
I think that there will be. I think the fall will.
the race for the cabinet post is a great race. I appreciate it. We need good cabinet members, but at some point you got to take yourself out.
Yeah.
Scott Walker actually had a really great op-ed piece in the Wall Street Journal about running for president, the mistakes that he made as one of the leaders. He was
an early
leader, and he didn't make enough. He made his race more about what he did in Wisconsin and not what he would do for the country. And I think he was directing that a lot at DeSantis. Get off everyone knows what you did for Florida. What are you going to do
for America?
For America.
Yeah. That's good advice.
It was great advice.
That's good advice because that's a guy that was he was
the front runner, one of the
lead.
front runners, along with Jeb Bush. And another example, they read, of a blue state, or kind of a purple state, becoming more red now, and largely because of what Scott Walker was able to do
Right.
there.
Right.
Taking on the teachers' unions, taking on the legislature, and getting some really monumental legislation passed.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see how this goes.
Yes, we will.
Until then, until next time. Thanks, everybody.
God bless.
See ya.